Hello, live from Las Vegas. This is Spilling the Loyalty. Spilling the Loyalty is a Publicis Digitas podcast. I'm co-host Brad Blackman, Publicis Global Portfolio Lead.
And I am Melissa Berger, the Chief Solutions Officer at Digitas.
And we are excited to be here live from Las Vegas. We're here at CES. A lot of 150,000 of our closest friends are here, which we're excited about. But we're also excited to have our special guest and currently my client, Shelly Riera, VP Marketing of Brookdale Senior Living.
Thank you so much.
Well, we're excited to have you here today. We're excited to talk more about building relationships with seniors, right, Melissa?
Absolutely, yes. And I would love to just have you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what your role is at Brookdale and what that really means for the organization.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I do get the pleasure and sometimes curse of working alongside Brad and his team.
We love you.
A lot of fun, bring a lot of great ideas and a lot of history there. So thanks for having me here today. Yes, I think about 150,000 of 10,000 of which are in the badge line.
Exactly, at the airport.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Right, I know. But anyway, so I am so excited. So a little bit about me is in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've been there almost 9 years. On Friday will be my 9-year anniversary.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so my boss and I have worked together for 20 years, and we
Incredible.
have started sort of building a national kind of overall marketing company at Brookdale Senior Living. And so my main focus is lead generation and lead acquisition marketing at Brookdale across all media channels, which is a lot of fun. But what has been most fun along the way is really focusing on the senior living audience. I've done a lot in the past with consumer goods and products and sold news and things like that, but this is the first time selling people, homes, and to an audience that most people don't necessarily target or talk to. And it's really special, and it has more meaning than I thought it would when I actually started the role.
I think that's awesome. And that's why I'm excited that you're here. First of all, thank you. I mean, you just landed from Nashville to Atlanta to
I
here.
did get up at 3:25 a.m. today.
Yeah,
It's only
and
6:25 here. You're good.
And
You're
there's
good.
a massive storm on the East Coast that's causing delays for people here. So listen, you landed, you're here. I'm
Oh, wait, I
thrilled.
did the wrong math.
Yeah, exactly.
Backwards.
Yeah.
Wow. Been in Vegas for 2 days and I'm dead.
Yeah.
So midnight. You're
Yeah,
good.
Exactly. And so I feel like that what you just said is this is a consumer group that people feel like that they're not heard, seen, or understood, right? And I think that we're excited. Melissa and I are happy to have you on today because there's a lot we can unpack of what you and Dave and the team are doing at Brookdale. So thank you again for being here. And beyond this podcast, which I know you're so excited to do, what are some other things you're excited to do at CES or see?
Well, I am excited to always be in Vegas. It's always sunny and there's great landscape here, as well as I heard Luda from the ATL, where I spent 16 years, is coming out tonight. So I actually am very excited to see him. But on top of that, I'm very ready to see what's happening in the healthcare sector.
Yes.
A lot of times with seniors and kind of where we are meeting people with their daily needs, making them feel comfortable, helping them. But there's so much now that technology can do, and just experiencing it and seeing, kind of walking down these halls and seeing where the advancements are going. There's just so much that can be done that you don't necessarily have to operate, and it just advances people's care. So I'm excited. Also for artificial intelligence, I think that will be cool. I mean, I know it's a huge, everyone says AI, I feel like.
Take a shot.
Yeah. We'll be drunk in 2 minutes.
We already did, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And connected home and things like that. So just kind of seeing how everyone interprets AI and kind of who's using the phrase for what and where it's going.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny you say that because we had a Publicis party last night, and we have Brian Cooley from CNET come speak every year. It's kind of an ongoing tradition. And everything you just talked about, he hit in a section. But he joked at the beginning. He said, can I do this whole presentation without saying AI? And everyone just laughed because it's impossible. But we did talk a lot about health and the incredible advancements and what you can consider for people even virtually and different tools you can leverage. So I'm excited for you to see what's out there. We, again, got a really quick sneak preview. Luda, we just realized a few minutes ago that Shelly and I lived very close to each other when she lived there, was very close to where I am now. So lots of sentimental moments and areas. And so, yeah, Ludacris just brings it back. Last time I saw him, I was here. So I can't wait. We'll be dancing together. I have a feeling. So
3 feet off the ground.
Literally. Absolutely. So when we were here last year, we did see a pretty big push around really building relationships with consumers in new ways. And Brad and I talked a lot about not much of the relationship building was highlighted at CES in the past. It's cool, interesting things, which are great. But if they're not adding value and there's not a relationship exchange, then we're kind of those are probably some of the ones that kind of fall off the radar. So we've been really interested in seeing kind of like what that looks like. So when you're considering building relationships with the consumers, and to your point, people that aren't being targeted as much, how are you really thinking about that and like, new ways to connect with them and what really matters to why they're making this decision?
Right. That's a lot of great questions there. And there are
Loaded
More
questions.
than the baked potato I'm going to have tonight. But, a lot of times people are experiencing loss, or typically it's not something that everyone is saying, this is something I expect. Everyone wants to sit there and, potentially have their, okay, we're going to cut this part.
Okay, that's fine.
Cut this question.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine.
Yeah,
So experience some kind of loss. Maybe your mom is wandering, is not safe at home, potentially leaving stove on, or things start to change. Might have had a spouse pass away, or things that happened that start to kind of put this cataclysmic effect in for the families and their members and whatnot. And then how do you want to take care of your parents in something that you don't know or haven't experienced before? So typically in marketing, it's a lot about, the journey and building awareness and building the relationship. But here it's trying to understand the person and then realizing that there's somebody's family member or loved one, and then being able to treat them on that level and getting to know them. So I think we are using things like AI and other stuff to get to understand and build the relationship, but it's also really having a lot of empathy. In the beginning, it used to be trying to capture a lot of data, and now it's really trying to understand where they're going, where they're coming from, where they're going, and what would be best for them. And sometimes it looks different than what people think, but it's better. And we often have people say, we wish we would have done it sooner.
Once they actually like get engaged and understand and see.
And they have it, and they realize the socialization and whatnot. And so, and again, it's something that I didn't expect in the senior living journey. And so I also think that with seniors, they have a lot to say. We film a lot of stories, and so you start to hear all of these people that have worked on the Manhattan Project that are, doctors and have created, Rosie the Riveters, like just all kinds of these crazy stories of people that are just legends, singers, artists, musicians, and that hasn't changed. They're just, older and don't have their necessary points in society where they're engaging all the time. So it's really fun to understand and experience who these people are, and I think part of our role at the company is to continue to allow them to be those people.
I love that you use the word empathy.
Yeah.
I think that's really, we talk about that in different verticals about how empathy plays an important part of building relationships, but the fact that you just said that to that group is awesome.
Yeah. I think like the EQ is probably extremely important around this too, because we were talking earlier around just the anxiety around this, right? To your point, like I should have done this sooner, but I think there's such a fear of like you lose yourself, you lose your individual identity, and actually you're just helping bring them together with like minds to, have a better experience with where they are when they're with their life. So we really think that that's such an important part of what you're doing.
For sure. So as you can tell, everyone who's listening, the theme of this month's podcast is building relationships with different consumer groups, which I think is awesome. And our favorite word, loyalty, will be peppered through. So again, Shelly, thank you for literally changing at the airport, coming here and being with us. And so we're thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled to represent Brookdale and all the unique views that you kind of have. For those of our listeners who don't know Brookdale, let's go into a little bit about the background of what Brookdale is and the amazing stuff that you are doing in Nashville at the corporate office.
Awesome. So, and I have to caveat, as of September 30th, 2023, because there's lots of changes. Always things, but put it on the record. Anyway, we have senior living communities, and we like to think of community because you're bringing that real sense of community to people.
Yes, which I love.
A lot of people use the word facility. That's potentially what you would call it when you relate to it or think, I'm going to go check out a facility, but we want it to be more humanized in the sense of we're moving you into a community, or I often say home. In our product portfolio is assisted living, memory care, and independent living. We also have some skilled nursing, but the majority are assisted living and memory care. We span across 41 states. We serve over 60-some thousand residents and have 672 communities, which is awesome.
It is awesome.
It's awesome. And our CEO is wonderful about taking that very seriously. She has a passion for taking care of seniors, and a lot of people on our teams do too. They consider it a mission and a calling. Because it's not easy work.
No, I can only imagine. And I think those are just incredible stats. And I'm sure like the growth over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years has been incredible. As we think about loyalty, Brad and I, when we first started this podcast, we talked about big L, little l. And I think you've both, right? So big L, like how do you just get people to realize?
Big L?
No.
This is Melissa's terminology that we've stolen.
Yes. No, but big L is like, how do you just get people to pick Brookdale, right? Like how do you get them to understand what you have to offer and, bring them kind of into the fold versus like, a loyalty program with mechanics where you're earning and burning. And so based on kind of what you've said, there's a lot here around like, how do we just get people to understand what Brookdale can offer them? So what would you say some of the main factors are that would be most influential around resident loyalty and the people that you're really trying to bring over and into the mix?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. I do like big L and little L, although I do tend to think, or maybe it's like massive L.
Yeah.
But anyway, in talking about that, I feel like with our residents, the loyalty, it really starts in the beginning. So our connection center is trained, again, with that empathy-based training, and it starts there, and that relationship builds. We also do a lot of, which sounds very practical and tactical, and it is, keyword searches, and there are across the board, there is still room for people to move. Google always shares statistics that we don't even purchase enough of all of the things that are out there, and not just we, but we as a category, that there are more and more people searching that need support. And so trying to take things that, like when you're doing the smallest ads, even in a paid search ad, you're trying to take that reinforcement of you're building a relationship with somebody and you're starting there. And so by the time that they move in, you know, you've created more of an experience. There's also a care plan that once they go in, just of that, where the associates call, check in, work with families. There's a lot of marketing elements to that stuff too. And then the staffing at the buildings. Our associates really are the people that, it's really a hands-on experience. It's not like we're gonna leave a flyer on your door or we're gonna tack something in the hallway. It's making sure that, you know, somebody is served or somebody is noticed or they seat you somewhere so that you're not alone, or potentially a resident engagement director finds something that somebody likes to do that they don't wanna lose that skill. Because it's basically like doing college again in your 80s. You're moving in with all these people and you don't necessarily know them. And as you get older, you may or may not want to talk to new people.
Right. Yeah. It depends on what you want your community to be.
That's
kind
right.
of moving forward.
Yeah, truly what a life cycle if you think about that, right?
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned earlier about your consumer groups. So you have two different ones, right? So we think residents, right? And then the influencers that influence potentially where the residents are going, right? So what are the factors that both consumer groups, the residents and influencers, take into consideration when making a decision regarding the right senior community for them or their loved one?
Sure. Yeah, so the residents basically are the people that, you know, I want to say the average age is someone around 82, 83 years old. And then the influencers are the people that help them make that decision. So sons, daughters, it can be friends. You know, there's a whole community of people that help kind of charter that path. And so a lot of times it's, you know, what will my mom be doing? What will dad be doing? You know, how do we downsize? You know, and how can we afford it? You know, what do we need to do to be able to make this transition? And what does that look like? And so we spend a lot of time through our marketing programs with education. You know, and we have found that not just education through the Brookdale brand, but also third parties, veterans associations, Alzheimer's associations.
Your
helping,
partnerships. Yeah.
Yep. Third party endorsements of kind of what is needed as people enter this space of just newness, and it may not be how they potentially saw themselves aging. I also think one of the pieces that I didn't get the chance to go to, but I do want to talk about that was kind of unexpected is this isolation. Is that I think a lot of time people think, you know, I want to stay home, and home is where I need to be, but
Feels more comfortable in their
I've
mind,
been here my
but
whole life. I don't want change. All those things that we think. I mean, even, you know, people change jobs. You know, I get a new car. I don't want to do. I'm sick of this. I hate change. You know, change management is a reason. There's a reason it's something we do. But I do think that, you know, we're seeing more and more kind of the increased effects and impacts, especially post-pandemic, of loneliness, isolation. So it does increase certain factors in people's health conditions with that. And so part of what I see when I go into our buildings, you know, and I go in quite a bit for photo shoots and things, it's just people are really happy. And you're like, oh my goodness, I could live here. You know what I mean? They're running you around. They're like, lunch is here, you know, eat here. There's tons of stuff going on. And there's just a lot of engagement that you want to be a part of that you don't necessarily think can happen for you at a certain age when there's not planned activities.
Well, and I think some of the resistance around the comfort or even just control over your scenario, I know creates that anxiety. And, you know, we've been talking, we're getting older, which means our families are getting older. And I have some relatives that are in this situation now, and it's been really hard. But I will say my aunt's like, I've made so many incredible friends.
Yes.
So her experience is so much better than she thought it ever would be, because she has that community. And so I think like playing up that community and relationship building is just so important. And you've, again, these 60,000 residents, everyone has a unique situation.
Yes.
So how do you think about that when you're either going through the acquisition or once they arrive at the facility, just helping them understand like the world's your oyster. There is so much for you here. And, you know, we want to empower you and enable you to like build this, you know, individual community.
Right. That's awesome to think about. And actually the team has pulled together, the resident engagement directors have now started a program where they're interviewing people and trying to find out what their likes and interests are, which is very cool. And so then they're partnering people using AI.
Yeah.
Shot.
I know. 2 times already.
Yeah. Or interviews, you know, or some old school methods to kind of go through and then partnering people, you know, people with, hey, do you want to read a book? Do you want to, you know, go take gardening? Because we've noticed that you used to garden or you were a landscaper and you're alone a lot. And so trying to pull people into things that they want and curate their own experiences. And then, of course, there's their regular stuff and going through. But a lot of it is tailoring the experience based on the resident themselves. And then, you know, the individual associates get to know the people that they work on. And a lot of times, and I will say our legal team doesn't always like us to say, but it's like a family.
But I love that.
I love that too.
Yeah.
There's just other parts of the family that come
I
with
know.
it that legal's like, the
It's a
family.
happy family.
It's a happy family. That's right. I like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I think, you know, knowing that there is the assisted living, there's so many different elements of like, again, knowing that you, even from an acquisition perspective, this is the area you're focused on and understanding that holistically. I know it's going to be really important to them feeling comfortable.
That's right.
With that decision.
That's correct.
I love the like more personalized experiences, like on site, being able to connect people, because again, I think that's what starts to create that true community and
And
relationship.
like they would never know that the person down the hall or in a different part of the community had the same passion that they did, and you're connecting them. And I love the word that you use, curating an experience for them. But I think it's bespoke to them, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Some other random thing is that people also are allowed to have pets, and so in most communities, and so that is something that's been a game changer. We also see that in our marketing. It for people that love pets or love dogs, we see an uptick in it. But that has really brought a lot of humanity to the buildings. And sometimes they'll just have a group dog, or a cat.
I love that.
And I want to say there's been some other nutty like birds and some other animals or things, but
The resident reptile.
Resident reptile. You brought him home from the desert. That's
oh
amazing.
my gosh, I love it.
Yeah. Well, and as you think about like how do you even encourage people to start even thinking about this in the journey? I think like again, we're all getting older. Unfortunately, we're trying to go backwards sometimes. Well, who knows? Maybe CS will solve that. We'll live forever. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But it's not like buying a car, right? Or buying a phone. And it's really truly thinking about the next who knows how many years of your life. So what does that decision journey look like, and how are you all thinking about kind of managing it and helping pull people through?
Yeah, I think that, there's different depending on what people's needs are or where they, are with their families or, financially or whatnot. There's different options. And I think people need to look into kind of what is right for them and their family. And, also location's a big thing. Well, are these services and things, located? And that's very, it sounds very transactional, but home is home. And so, in people's minds, home, it has a lot of memories. Oftentimes it's a building. Oftentimes it's a city where your kids live in a different city. Your spouse has died. Does it really bring the same elements to you anymore? And so I think a lot of it is timing in different phases of what people need along the way. And there are times that, your care needs will change where you may just need a little help. And so, you can stay and kind of potentially struggle, or you may be overtaken and you need help either getting dressed in the morning, getting out of bed, or those kinds of things. And so I think it's trying to understand and assess kind of where your loved one, or if you all are getting older, where you are and what your needs are. And I do think the mystique of, nursing homes or going there to, really has come up in the past generations. And again, nursing homes do something very well with a purpose, but it's not necessarily kind of a lifestyle that you can take as you get, older. But this is also a personal question. My mom has dementia. She's had it for about 20 years, and she has lived in a senior living community for 11.
Okay.
And it's not Brookdale because they're not located in the area.
Yeah.
Geo-disclosure.
Yeah.
But what I never really expected about the whole piece of the decision when you think about it is the toll on the caregiver, my dad. And so even when he would have people come into the house, a lot of times they would be with mom, but even if it was 24 hours, he was never fully relaxed in his home because the environment was always having it turned in kind of to almost like a hospital. And so when mom moved in to get the, kind of round the clock care that she was increasingly needing, I think we really saw the difference with what it was doing for her. And then my dad started to come alive. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, he got a lot of his life back, even though he spends a lot of time with my mom, he got a lot of his life back. And I think that's something unexpected that I think but I think there's different times and journeys for different people depending on what your needs are. Yeah. And I think people need to look at it and not think that some options are scary or terrifying, or I would never do that, because I would encourage people to learn and educate more because it can offer things that you don't expect.
Yeah. Well, and what you just said brought up an interesting point too. So your father is still, like, he's at home, she's living in. So there's lots of different ways where your spouse can be with you at a location, or you can still. So I really love that too. It's really creating that flexibility for your situation and what's right for your engagement. The ability for him to get there at any time, at any day, to be there is also, I think, really important. But I love that he got a little bit of his kind of life back as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he did. Right. Yes, he's got us doing chores again.
Of course he does.
Doesn't matter how old you are, you're always doing chores.
Do
the dishes, Shelly.
What is going on here? I don't understand.
His dog is now reporting to him, so on a daily basis. But yeah, it's been great. So, and again, I think it's a very personal journey, and I also think, and this okay, off the record, you all may or may not want to include, but I do think people should be looking at different opportunities for care and care insurance and things like that too, on kind of how to prepare for.
I think that's really smart,
because there's so many chronic conditions or things that are coming up, and especially if people don't have a loved one or can't take care of it, I just think that there's precautions people can take too.
What's interesting about what you said too is, like, you kind of knew what your dad needed as well as what your mom needed, right? And home is a very kind of deeply personal place, like wherever you are. And so, you talked earlier about the stats with Brookdale and how it's a national across the footprint, right? And how do you really maintain that feel of home while having the largest community footprint in the industry? Like, how do you have the potential residents, really look at this as a place that you've understood them, it's a home place for them, which brings longevity to their community and for them being in the community, and also loyalty to them overall?
Right. So I think that, when you have a large brand, marketers always love it because you get access to things, or potentially, better deals. You get more awareness, so it makes that consideration easier, or, more compelling. Makes sometimes the sales cycle harder. That does not mean a lot when you're saying, hey, mom's going to a large brand and we're going to have her being taken care of by a large company. Yeah. You're like, it's
just
my
plug
mom.
in.
Yeah, just plug in. Yeah. Mom, hey, we're going to program her with AI. She'll be fine. Another shot.
Here's your new best friend.
Yeah.
So I think that when you start looking at what it is, you get access to that clinical care, standards of care, you get the experience. But really our communities are run, they have the CEO almost of their own building. And so they are run, top down with the associates, and it's really up to the localized associates and the people in that community that provide that care. And so we do see a lot of that, kind of customization according to the residents and what they want at their local place.
I love it. So I don't know if you know this or not, but my best friend, his mom is at your Clinton, Mississippi community.
Awesome.
And he says exactly what you just said, like, the fact that they built something bespoke to her and make her feel at home and make her feel known, make her feel seen, all those things. So that's like a massive plug for you all, because his mom really had a lot of needs that need to be met.
Right.
And you were right there with him the whole time.
Oh, fantastic. I love hearing this.
So.
Did you get a referral bonus?
No. And I've never really had that story with you before, because I didn't want it to, but you need to know that. Like,
that's fantastic.
Brookdale's done an amazing job. So
it's incredible.
Yeah, and they allow the parents and the kids to be kids again, and the moms to be able to thrive and have, dignity is also something in the journey of health and starting to independence and things. And again, it might be kind of aided independence, but to that person, it's more than they were doing. And so it just brings about kind of this freedom in your mind as you age. And I think it's awesome.
I do too. And I love the opportunity to learn new things
when
you're late in life, gardening, knitting. I don't care what it is, but I just love that.
Because that's a stigma, right? Because you think okay, I'm going to sit in my recliner now and do whatever, and it's like, actually, no, I want to have a whole other part of my life. Whether
the third phase of your life.
Yeah, maybe I'm good at painting. I don't know yet.
Well, when we initially did research, one of the things we were looking at is that people would say, they've had their first act, and then there was their second act of life, but they're they're saying now as seniors are going into, and I hate the word aging because I think it's just, you're just living, right?
Yeah.
You just keep living, and then you're just living, you could be living louder, living bigger, living happier. Yeah. But you actually, the years tick by. And so I think the term with it is that, you're now seeing third acts, fourth acts, and you're seeing people that are just entering this into kind of, the intermission is over and they're on to the next one.
One of the funniest memes I saw recently was from the father of the bride, and it has Steve Martin and Diane Keaton next to each other, and they're like, this is what we put as people who were 40, both fully gray hair, right?
Oh, yeah, I know.
And you're like,
right. And it's like,
hello?
I look at my parents and I'm like, you don't look your age. Like, my dad walks every day. Like, there's so much activity. So I'm like, this is confusing when you think about how 40 and 50 were portrayed 10, 20, 30 years ago versus
40s,
like, that's exactly right.
For sure.
But I love that. But it's also like, okay, so in third act, fourth act, thrive.
Right.
Enjoy your life.
Enjoy your life.
Agree. Yes.
Right. When we see things, it's like live well, age well. And so when you put it well with it, it really takes up the likability of it. But when you just put age, and again, no one,
age is a number, as we've all been told our whole lives.
It's all here in the brain.
That's right. That's right.
It is. Well, thank you for joining us. Okay, final two questions. Yes. We could talk about this probably forever because we get excited, as you can see, about everything. So I think one is, this is a high consideration, right, before making this decision. So I think, like, if there's any like tips or thoughts you can give. And then the second part of it is really like, what do you recommend brands keep in mind for this audience, right? Even the caretaker, right? Even kind of the sub. I think usually you're still a little bit further in your life helping make that decision for your family member, friend, et cetera. So what are some of the things you would consider about this audience?
I think considering about this audience is because people haven't really talked to them, even media segments traditionally haven't gone up, 55 plus, 65, plus. When you try to segment out research that's like 75 to 85, people are like, well, we can see who we can, back into. Right. But I think it is really, it's a group to be considered. And, you have the silent generation, you have the baby boomers coming in, but a lot of them, they're quiet, but they walk tall and they've done a lot. And so it's really listening and then just also respecting and, letting them lead you, right? I think, culturally we tend to value youth, which is, exciting and fun and whatnot, but people, like in Japan or other countries that, start with their elderly, yes. I think we can do more of that. And I think that's one of the things our company does that I love.
Yes, I agree.
And you just, and literally you'll sit there and you start hearing these stories and you're like, snap, I didn't even think that. Or, you're just like, oh, that's my granddad versus like, oh my gosh, my granddad did all this stuff. I had no idea.
Incredible. I love that. I love the exchange of stories you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And the fact that I know this because I work on your brand, but then you talk about like, we've had famous musicians or artists or all these that have had massive lives that actually changed the world in certain ways. And now they're sitting in your facilities doing act 3 or 4 that you're saying too. So it's just phenomenal.
I know. I keep telling my family, I'm like, you guys need to like document your stories. And, because I think too many people don't do that. And then you kind of like leave life, you live life to the fullest. And then I've been like pushing my family. I'm like, let's document all the awesome and amazing experiences you have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do those oral histories. They're worth it.
I know. It's amazing. There's so many like new products I've been seeing too. So
and then you're like, gosh, I didn't know mom did all that.
I know.
Mom was cool, and like, mom still is cool. I just wasn't listening. So I think it's more about listening and going
probably
through.
That.
Yeah. Well, again, we all, the three of us, I think, could talk for hours, which is a good thing.
Yep.
But I really do appreciate you coming today.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
I thank you for being on our podcast. I thank you for opening our viewers or our listeners to new thoughts on consumer group that I feel like is forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's going to be really important for people to listen to this and understand like there's a whole new way that they can.
And people are going after the group now. You'll start to see ads from Google.
Absolutely.
They're starting to go after the segment. So the media is getting more. It's getting more expensive. There's more share of voice against the target. But I think the authenticity and really connecting with the audience and truly caring, I think, is something that everybody values. But I think the senior audience is there, and they're right for it because no one has really targeted it to the level that all these other consumer groups have been. So I think that's fun.
And for you, I think it's authentically listen and care, right?
Oh, yes.
That's what you all are about at Brookdale.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
So I know that, listen, you're here, you're in Las Vegas. CES is here. What's next for you beyond Luda tonight? What's next for you, Shelly?
We have breakfast tomorrow at 9, Brad. And I'm not sure that after Luda it will be at 9.
Come on.
Come on. It's Melissa will be there too.
Yes,
so you have to
I'm
be
helping
there.
Lita. You have to come.
So, I will be going around some of the consumer areas. And so, yeah, I guess Mark and I are going to go tackle that, check into the hotel, and see you a little later for drinks.
I will say, so the floor that you're going to go on, the healthcare, like in-home health, all that stuff, will be really interesting for you to kind of understand, like what are potentially new partners for your communities as you kind of move forward. We did that last year. We've got some insights into this, what's happening here, and I think it's actually larger this year than it was last year.
Oh, fantastic.
So you'll, I think, have a great time as you go through that. So again.
And for anyone who's interested, obviously Brookdale.com, but also I know you have care specialists. You can call anytime and really have someone talk you through details. So that's really the best way to start to get engaged and learn about the.
And also we have a community Facebook page for each one of our buildings.
Oh, great!
As well.
So you can go see what the kind of personality is of that
building,
location.
and so we're the only ones in the industry doing it.
love
But also, I know it's been very fun because you get to see what's local there, and we do a lot on social media. That's where you can find a lot of our great stories. And I can't say enough about that team. They run me.
Yeah, I know. I love it. Well, I love Brookdale. I love your team.
Thank you so much.
It's always fun for me to come to Nashville. I feel like I'm going
I know.
home
I
to
always
see
feel like
you.
well, you are going home.
I know, exactly.
I mean,
not
he
only do I feel it,
actually
but I
is.
am. Exactly. So thank you again for coming today.
Well, thank you all for having me. I had a great
joining
time.
us.
Oh my gosh, yes, for sure. And please join us again for our next month's episode. And we will be talking to our friends at We Are 8. So we're excited about that. We, again, have a lot of things planned for 2024. Again, thank you, Shelly.
Thank you.
Brookdale.com.
All right.
Here we go.
All right. Love it.
Thank you.
Bye.